Well, hello again. We are live, Mississippi Family Homestead. I'm Scott,
And I'm Tina.
and we're bringing you this live stream every weeknight, trying to every weeknight. We're not going to be here on Christmas Eve, but we're going to try to be here on Christmas night. Tonight, we are talking about having a homestead and a full time job, which is probably most people.
Yeah, so we have to do that every day for both of us. So both of us have a full-time job, and mine's a little bit easier because I actually work from home. So we wanted to just kind of talk about the different things that you have to do. It is a little more challenging when you're working from, when you have a 9 to 5 job and then you're working a homestead too. So we wanted to talk a little bit about maybe if you're just trying to start a homestead, like how to juggle that stuff.
Yeah, it can be a big challenge, but you want to make sure you do it right or you're going to get burnout on everything. But it is possible, and I think probably most people that have a homestead, I think most of them have to have a full-time job unless
Yeah.
you're independently wealthy or something.
Yeah. I mean, you can make your homestead work, and make money, but it has to be a little bit of a bigger homestead. If you have a smaller homestead and you're just starting out, I really don't think there's really a way that you can have, you know, a homestead and not have some kind of a job,
Right.
or one of you have
You
some
have to
kind of
have
a
some
job.
kind of income. And I know you see a lot of people on YouTube, but their YouTube income, a lot of times helps them out. Or there are some that also have, they sell some of their extra produce, some of their extra harvest.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about having a homestead, you are going to have some kind of other, income. But when you first start out, at least, unless you're just buying a homestead or something that's already established. But just keep that in mind. You are gonna. It's not just, you start homestead and then you don't have to have any kind of income at all.
Right.
It's kind of hard sometimes, when you're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now I know, like for me, what you know, what my thing is I wake up between 6:30 and 7, and I go check on the chickens, and then I have to let them out and check on them in the mornings. So that's kind of my schedule, and then I have to be clocked in by 7:30. And I can't run around outside while I'm even though I work from home. I'm not free just to do whatever I want to do. So it's kind of like, I'm here at home on the homestead, but I can't just run around outside and take care of the animals and that kind of stuff because it's not that kind of a job.
Right.
So,
Right.
and now for him, his is he actually leaves the house and he's gone. Um, Usually by 8:30 or so, he's left the house and he's gone till usually 5 or a little after. And we have to do our homesteading chores usually in the afternoons, anything that has to be done, which in the summertime it's kind of okay. You have light outside once we get off. So I get off at 4. So in the summertime it's great. I can go outside and do what I need to do in the afternoons 'cause it doesn't get dark till like 7:30 or so. So it's fine, in the summertime. In the winter time you don't have as many things going on, so it's kind of okay. The chickens still have to be taken care of. So if you're planning on starting a homestead, the first thing you need to do is start with just one project. Start with just chickens or with just a garden. Don't try to start unless you're just going to have a very small amount, of chickens. It's kind of okay. Just like 4 chickens and your garden, you can usually normally handle that. When you first start out on a homestead and you're working 9 to 5.
Yeah, you definitely do want to start small. And I not only, do I have to go in, I am on call also, but we make it work. Everything doesn't get done perfectly, but that's just the way it is. So, you also have to accept the fact that things just might not get done like you want them to.
That's
And
right. That's right.
probably I accept that a little too much lately. It seems like nothing ever gets finished, but that so you don't want to start a whole lot of things, and you know, I think it's probably best if you can finish each thing instead of being like me and having a lot of stuff
Right,
undone. I
right.
mean, hanging over your
Make
head.
make plans, as you go, as you start your homestead, to plan it out and start really, really small. At first, like do you a small garden and have just one animal. Don't try to have 10 different animals, when you're especially when you're first starting out. So you have to learn how to juggle that.
Right. And meet Missile. This is our cat.
Yeah,
He's
he likes attention.
yeah. He loves being on a live stream.
Yeah, he's tailless. He doesn't have a tail. He takes a lot of maintenance too on the homestead.
Yeah.
He likes to run around and wake us up at 3 in the morning, especially if his food bowl is slightly empty or almost empty. He runs around and tries to tell us that his food bowl is empty, but he's a really sweet boy.
Yeah.
Now he's not your normal farm. You don't want this kind of cat on your farm.
We're talking about you.
Yeah, we are. So we do have a cat that actually does go outside and catch some mice and stuff and, checks out the chickens once in a while. But this type of cat is not one that you really want on the
Yeah, he
homestead.
actually is scared to death outside and really freaks out. So
Yeah.
we're having to keep him inside.
So if you're starting a homestead and you want a cat, don't get this type of one. Get one that could go outside and catch some mice and stuff. And by the way, having a cat, on the homestead is a good idea. They do, especially if you have farm animals, they do catch a lot of mice and rodents and stuff and help you with that. Mice and rodents eat, and they can eat your food grains,
Yeah.
Real
Bad in the chicken,
Yeah.
where the chicken feed is.
Yes, it is. So, just keep that in mind. Think about getting a cat if you're starting a homestead. Just one that can go outside, not this one. So, kind of got off subject, but it's the truth.
So where are we in our notes? I was trying to work out the audio here.
Oh, okay. I think we're over here,
We have notes just to keep us on track.
Yeah,
And they're not helping me.
No, they're not. So,
One thing, you do want to plan everything out. And I think she may have touched on starting smaller. You might want to start smaller than you think, because it's almost like having two full-time jobs when you have a full-time job and then a homestead job.
Yeah.
Because all of this stuff has to be done.
and a lot of people want, you'll start your homestead and you'll think it's just a kind of a fantasy at first, but it's not. I mean, it's real. And you have to go with that. We're sorry.
Yeah, it's a lot of work keeping your animals happy, but it is work to do it. So it's not really, I know watching YouTube channels, it looks like a fantasy, but it's
really not.
It's actually work.
Yeah.
It's
really
rewarding work, but it's actually work. So you'll want to kind of make a schedule of what you're going to do. If your job's predictable, you want to make sure you can. That you can plan out your day, maybe, especially if you've got a garden, you might want to, if you're down here in the South, do some work early morning and then, maybe late in the evening before and after work, just make you a
list.
list and make you a schedule it out.
Mm-hmm. That would probably really help a lot, to have a schedule, that you just do, and not, just, it's kind of hard sometimes if you don't have a schedule and you have a full-time job.
Yeah, and then also, like, you can do the big jobs on Saturday, and maybe leave the lighter stuff for Sunday, the stuff that doesn't require a whole lot, just the bare necessities. That way
Yeah.
you have somewhat of a break on Sunday.
A rest day, per se. Another thing is, if excuse me. So if you have projects, so when you first start out, you are going to have some projects. So just make sure that you plan those projects out and you put those on a schedule. Say you're building a chicken coop, I'm going to complete the basics of the chicken coop, on a Saturday or something when you're not working. And then, if it takes till the next weekend till you get it finished, that's okay. Don't push yourself so hard during the week and the weekend to where you get burnt out. And I think we talked about that some, but last week, but don't push yourself so hard that you get burnt out on those projects, and finish your projects. Don't leave them, unfinished. So
Yeah.
that'll help you a lot on the homestead.
And know how long each task takes. Like if it takes 15 minutes to feed the chickens in the morning, that way you know how to squeeze it in,
Yeah.
if you can do it, you know how much, give yourself a little extra time. So, Missile.
Um, Missile takes time.
Yeah,
He has the
he's
life
not
of
very
Riley.
mannerly tonight.
No, he's not, but that's okay. He's a cat. I wonder if any of y'all have any animals on your homestead, like cats. Did they catch your mice and stuff? We'd love to hear from that. Um, or any like ours that doesn't do a thing. We actually love animals. We love all animals, but
Yeah.
we have 3 cats, and 2 of them don't do a thing on the homestead, and the other one does help out. So we'd love to hear about your cats and your animals that you have on your homestead. Um, you know, don't try to get too many things, too fast, like too many, like have a bunch of chickens, a bunch of goats, a bunch of horses, a bunch of cows, all at one time, especially if you're first starting out and you've never done it before. So that's another thing.
Yeah, because I think that could be one of your biggest mistakes is, don't get the wrong kind of animals, because the wrong kind of animals and a full-time job could really stress you out. Later on when you learn about those animals and gradually work up to it, they'd probably be okay. But when you're doing it at first with a full-time job, and also, if you've got a full-time job that you have to be out of town, make sure somebody else in your family can feed those animals, because that's going to have a lot to do with it also. You want to, it's hard right now where we are with the animals. Somebody has to be here all
Right,
the time. And it's
right.
just really hard to go out of town because we've got so many animals.
Yeah, yeah. So many things going on. And especially in the summertime, it's hard for us to do anything. We have the garden also usually. One thing I would say, like if you have a task around your homestead, have all your tools together all at one time. You say to yourself, okay, I'm going to need this, this, and this to finish this project, and have it there and ready, and not have to, I don't know, run to the store.
And be like me.
Yeah.
This is something I have to, now there's certain thing, woodworking I'm good with and all that stuff, but plumbing,
Yeah.
I do it, but that's where it gets totally
Yeah.
unorganized.
You have to run to the store for each.
And when you're like us and 30 minutes away from a store, it's a little
That's
harder.
right.
So
That's another thing,
time management is a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Especially if you're still working your job, you want to have, get whatever you need while you're in town that day, or, after
Yeah.
your job or whatever. If you need things for the farm, maybe try to do that after your work day. And then on Saturdays, you can be at home and, do the things that you need to do on your homestead, those fence repairs, or build that chicken coop, or do something in the garden. And you're not, since you're like we are, he has to go all the way to town to work, which is 30 minutes away. So if you're in town, go ahead and get those things you need, even if it's your extra groceries or whatever, one day during the week when you get off work. That way you can save your time for your homestead, on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, instead of having to go get your groceries or your extra things on a Saturday.
And if you've got a whole family planning out, working on all these tasks, I think it would be real helpful to maybe once a week get together and plan. Just, plan
Yeah.
together, say, okay,
Involve your kids.
involve the kids. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. That way you're not stuck with everything, and just have a planning session once a week. And that would help you, that'd help them get the chores done, know what they've got to do for chores this week. And then it would also help you too.
Right, right. So, you know, do things like do some watering systems. Like if you have animals for the chickens, try to do a watering system that's automatic, instead of you going out there and filling up those waters, every day. See if you can fix some kind of automatic system, or at least make sure your water source is close to your animals. You have some type of water source close to them so you're not having to water, carry water, or, string the hose through the yard, so you can do that. That's one thing
Yeah.
that would make it easier.
And that's one thing I want for us is to have an automatic water in the garden to help
Yeah.
us because, we have to, it's not a big thing, but, it is easier if you have an automatic water or just
A timer
an
or
easy
something.
way so you don't have to, right now we have to drag all these hoses everywhere. It
Yeah.
works, but
It takes time.
yeah, it takes a lot of time.
And since we work full time,
Yeah.
it's hard to do that.
And it does wear down on you. So, if you could come up with some kind of automatic watering system, that would help you also. That way you don't have to worry about watering every day if you have to during the dry spells.
And use your rainwater if you can for your stock, for your for your chickens or cows or whatever. Maybe have some kind of system where you can capture that rainwater, which is my goal. For our chickens, I hope in this next year to be able to fix up some rain barrels and some gutters on their chicken coop so we can capture that water, and I won't have to be hauling water everywhere. So,
Yeah, I remember my grandfather he had an old bathtub.
Mm.
They didn't go to Tractor Supply and get these fancy
Right.
metal things, like they do now, but he had an old bathtub. And I think it was the condensation pipe out of the air conditioner ran like about 100 feet over there
Really?
and filled up that bathtub. He kept the water going with that.
That's funny.
Yeah, so he was real creative, and I think they were our grandparents were real creative
Yeah,
back then.
maybe
coming up.
think up some do-it-yourself projects too, on your homestead to help save money and to, make it easier for you on the homestead like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and kind of recognize if you're getting to that point of burnout before you get to that point, because you're a lot of people want to be more homesteaders and maybe more self-sufficient and less dependent on the job, and that's a good thing. But if you get burnt out on the way doing it, then you're going to get so frustrated you'll never make those goals. So one thing you want to do is know when you're getting close to the point of saying, hey, this is just too much for me.
Yeah.
Or it's getting a little too much. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to, go out if you can, go out of town for the weekend or something, or maybe just plan a day off and stay at the homestead. That way you save money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But know when, try to keep in mind when you're getting close to it.
Yeah. And, make sure that if you have kids that you're enlisting their help and get them to help, especially if you're still working that, that full-time job. They can, every size kid can usually do something around a homestead,
Except the grown ones.
Yeah.
They seem to not do a lot.
They don't.
But, that's where we messed up. We weren't out here when they were,
Little.
they didn't move out here till they were about grown.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't learn the importance of gathering your own food and all that. Now, my son, he said, "Oh, I can't wait till the garden this year." I said, "Do you mean working in it, or do you mean,
Yeah.
eating?" "Oh, I mean eating from it." So, teach them while they're young,
Yeah.
and then hopefully they'll help you. Some of them are not going to want to do that kind of lifestyle, and that's
Yeah.
okay, whatever, they want to do. But, try to, not going to say use them, but because you don't want to overuse the kids because you're going to burn them out.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
Use
you
common
do.
sense.
It
but-
is very helpful if you're still working, full-time job to have your your kids help you out, some. That's very, very helpful.
Yeah, I know a lot of people with kids. They have the kids each do a little task, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot for each kid, but it when it's all together,
It
it
helps.
helps out. So
Mm-hmm.
so you know the kids can be a big help and try to get organized, and and it if you've got a full-time job and you can afford it, then maybe if you get behind a little bit, maybe there's a neighbor that you could pay to help out
Mm-hmm.
on the farm to help you move ahead a little bit.
And don't think, if you are wanting to start a homestead, don't think that you do have to quit your job just to have a homestead.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. I mean, you can have homestead items, with a small area, 1 or 2 acres or half an acre sometimes, if you just want to garden and, do some homesteading that way. You don't have to quit your job to start a homestead. I mean, it's hard sometimes, but it's also worth it, to have a job and to be able to have the homestead. It's really worth it, but don't think that you do have to quit your job or that you need all this acreage unless you're wanting some cows, which we don't suggest if you're first starting
Yeah.
out anyway. Just know that you can do it. You don't have to have a bunch of land or anything like that to start your homestead, and it is doable. I mean, we've been doing it for 6 years now.
Yeah. I want to say hey to Chicken's Uncle Bob in the chat. Hope you're having a good evening today. Thanks for dropping in. But yeah, we have been, and your job's kind of not 7:30 to 4:30 or whatever. It is
Yeah,
predictable, but mine is, real unpredictable
that's
and a
right.
lot of hours. Now, also I'm going to be cutting back my hours in a few months, but
Mm-hmm.
luckily I work somewhere where they're willing to do that, and it's going to work out and be able to spend more time here on the homestead because there's a lot of things I want to get done, and we're
There's
gonna
unfinished projects.
yeah, there's unfinished projects, and then we also want to take you through the journey here as we do that because we want to encourage people to start a homestead at whatever level you are comfortable with.
Right, right. And I mean, and if that means you're working a 9 to 5 job and you want to do just a few things to start a
Yeah.
homestead, then that's fine. We're kind of getting ready for the next step in our homestead journey that coming up this next year, and so he can cut back at work and be here and finish those projects, and maybe we'll think about getting some more animals or different animals or something.
And I think another thing when you're doing, not just starting a homestead, but if you're starting with a full time job, I think, what worked for us, we've been here
Six?
5 years,
No, it's six. This
six
is six
years,
years.
and we have accomplished a lot up here because, I mean, we've cleared land,
Mm-hmm.
we've done a lot, and nearly everything up here we've done ourselves, just
Right,
about.
right. We
Um,
have.
we had a little house, a little help putting the house here, but yeah, there are always unfinished projects. Unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot more unfinished projects here for us, but I, I'm trying to think in my head. I thought, at the beginning of the year, I really need to get a few things done,
Yeah.
but
So
if you
we'll.
look back, you can. I think sometimes if you take a step back and see how much you've accomplished, it kind of encourages you.
Yeah.
But you can. It's if you look like we started, several years ago. I mean, 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
we lived in my shop at the time, and the shop was not a big shop. It was,
No, no.
you
And
know,
our
it
daughter was
was
still at home.
yeah,
Yeah.
us and our daughter, and I think it was just 2 bedrooms. We made the walls 2 bedrooms and just pretty well did what we could in there. And it worked, it's,
Right.
we're realizing that, society here, especially in the United States, thinks you have to have this huge house and all this stuff. And we realized you don't have to have that,
No, no. You
so,
really don't.
um, That's one thing. And we do still have our full-time jobs, but we've also tried to scale down so we don't really have to have those jobs right now. If something happened, we could make it on about half what we get right now
Yeah.
anyway. So,
Yeah.
but it is, I'd like to encourage people, as you're starting the new year, if you're wanting to start a homestead, start a little at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. We did a little at a time. Don't think you're going to do 5 years worth of work in 1 year, because it is. Now, if you're young, you might can. We're in our 50s, so
Yeah, we had to start out slow.
the
And
southern, the
that's
southern,
another thing, if you're older, don't think that you can't start a homestead. We did, and there's people that are, 70s that have homesteads, and they work on them, so, and they're retired. So don't think just because you're older that you can't do something.
and I think the good thing about being older is maybe you can afford some of the stuff a little
Right,
better, like
right.
a tractor or something to
If
help
you
you
need
out.
it,
And
yeah.
that's when
So
you're
there's-
younger, it's a shovel and you
Yeah,
know.
right. So if you're younger, I mean, the one advantage is, you do have small kids that's going to help you on the homestead. But older, you may have a little bit more money, so you can you can
Yeah.
buy the things that you need to help you work the homestead.
And that's where that full-time job comes in,
Yeah.
but and another thing, with the full-time job, you can also start some side things when you have the garden. Go to one of those sales. What do
Yeah,
you call it?
the farmers market.
Farmers market, and sell some stuff, and maybe transition into having a full-time homestead. But I don't know that you could ever. You've got to have some kind of external income in most cases, unless you've got a retirement check or something coming in. But
Yeah,
I don't think you can. It's hard to just go straight
homesteading.
homesteading without some kind of income. You would have to. So, maybe work part-time or something. And if you can, because the point is in homesteading is really to scale down, simple life, grow your own food, but it's still expensive to even grow your own food. But I really think it is cheaper now than going to the grocery
It
store
is,
when you do it right.
It really is.
So, and we'll have to talk about that at some point too. But so hopefully this encourages you. We're going to try to do these live streams each weeknight, and we want to thank you for watching. So
We'll be live again tomorrow night, and
we're going to be off Christmas Eve, but we will be here Christmas night. And if the weather's okay, we're going to be out and make a little campfire and see what of our family we can include to
come and join us for our campfire.
only
and-
one of them so far has
Yeah, that's our
been accepted. So,
that's our daughter-in-law. So she-
all right. So I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. So hopefully this helps somebody out, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. And thanks for watching, and hope you have a great evening.